All right, Mazarine, it's 1 o'clock Eastern. Is it okay if I go ahead and get this party started officially?
Please.
All right, awesome. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and good morning, I should say, if you are out on the West Coast or somewhere in between. And if you are like Mazarine is, if you're watching this as a recording, I hope you're having a good day no matter when and where you are. We are here to talk about what corporate sponsors really want from your nonprofit. Everybody wants those sponsorships, right, for their events, and we are going to be talking about that today. So you are in the right place. I'm so happy all of you have joined us. I'm Steven. I'm over here at Bloomerang, and I'll be moderating today's discussion as always. And just a couple of quick housekeeping items. Just want to let you all know that we are recording this session, and we will be sending out that recording as well as the slides later on this afternoon. So be on the lookout for that. If you have to leave early, or maybe you get interrupted, or one of those pets bothers you, or barks at a delivery man or something like that, don't worry. We will get that recording in your hands today, and you won't miss a thing from this awesome presentation. But most importantly, we love for these sessions to be interactive. So use the chat box, use the Q&A box. You can use both of those. We're going to save some time at the end for Q&A, so don't be shy. Send in your questions and comments along the way. If you use the Q&A box, that might be a little bit more visible to us as the host, just a little insider tip there. But bottom line, we would love to hear from you. And say hi in the chat if you haven't already introduced yourself. You can also tweet us. I'll keep an eye on the Twitter feed. But like I said, don't be shy, because we love the interactivity. If this is your first Bloomerang webinar, I just want to say a special welcome to all you first timers. We do these webinars just about every single Thursday throughout the year. We literally do like 49 or 50 sessions a year, 10 years on. And it's my favorite thing. But if you've never heard of Bloomerang, besides our webinar series, we are also a provider of donor management software. So check that out if you are interested, or if you're in the market for a new system. You can go to our website, all kinds of videos and stuff you can watch to kind of learn more about us. But don't do that right now, because we got a friend of the program coming back to join us from beautiful Oregon. Mazarine Trays is joining us. Mazarine, how you doing, friend?
Oh man, I'm so happy to be here, Steven. It's been a long 2 years.
Yes, it has. And I've really appreciated our friendship over the years. You were one of the first people to say yes to my wacky webinar idea back in probably 2013 or 14, something. Time has no meaning. It's like, wow, that's a long time. Circle. Time is a flat circle, exactly. And Mazarine is such an awesome human being. Has worked for and with nonprofits for many, many years, runs her own events for which she asked for sponsors. So she has seen literally both sides of the relationship on this topic. And I could not find a more perfect person to talk about this topic, aside from a lot of other topics. It's not exclusive to sponsorships, but you got to get plugged into Mazarine's stuff. She's got an awesome online community, a lot of events she holds throughout the year, which are really one of my favorite things about her is how dedicated she is to equity, accessibility, all those important topics that not a lot of people talk enough about. I don't mind saying that. So Mazarine, you're awesome. And people want to hear from you, because I know you got a lot of good stuff to cover. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'll let you pull up your
pull up my presentation. Awesome. And then I'm going to start with some memes, and I'm also going to go into slideshow mode. And so I'll share again, new share. So you just see my slides. Yeah, so that's working. I'm going to ask folks in the chat, how are you doing? Are you like, the world's on fire? Do you want to go to a sound bath? Or are you feeling just like, like Salt Bay there, like, oh, there's a lot of things wrong with my work and I'm just kind of tired right now. Whatever it is, maybe Steven, you can tell me what people are putting in the chat. I know our chat is just like popping right now. So
all of the above. A lot of shouts out for the sound bath though.
Yes, if you want to go to a sound bath. So I'm having this thing called Spring Break in April, where it's by donation, you can come for free. We're going to do a sound bath, and art therapy and journaling and all that stuff for 1 hour, 1 day per week on Zoom. So if you want to come, love to have you. And also doing the career conference in March, which Bloomerang will be involved in. And I'm going to be doing the party at the end of the patriarchy in July. So there's a lot of cool stuff happening this year. But yeah, I'm doing it because the world is like this. It is it is really hard sometimes to like focus on our work, to concentrate, to have compassion for other people, to have patience for them. We've been in 2 years of a cortisol response in our brain, so it's been very stressful. And so if you just kind of felt in January like something was breaking, this is kind of why, and it's still happening. And so I just want to have compassion for yourself, forgive yourself for not being able to do as much as you used to do, for not being able to achieve and have grace. And this includes also people that you interact with for sponsorship. Give them grace if they don't get back to you. It's never ever personal. It's probably something going on with them. And so I want you to know that if you need to step away and relax and only take part of this webinar, we are recording it, as we said, and there will be the slides for you as well. So please take care of yourself. Now more than ever, this is so important. And if you are like, oh, my job is just too much right now, hey, we're going to have a conference where we talk about how we can have more collective power as workers. And I'm really psyched about that. It's happening in March. Check it out, career-conference.com. So welcome to What Your Sponsors Really Want. This is me and a friend of mine just being like, woo! So if you want to have a call with me, I'd love to chat with you about what you're working on. You can go to bit.ly/mtfree30. Has to be that capitalization though, just FYI. You can also check out the career conference. It's going to be super fun as well. So Stephen is absolutely right. I have asked for so many sponsorships over the years. I've done online events. I've done 15 of them now, and I'm actually my 16th one. But also I did a lot of sponsorships when I was working full-time at nonprofits. I worked at the Urban League of Portland. I worked at Clackamas Women's Services, which is domestic violence shelter. And I've also worked at the Austin Civic Orchestra down in Austin, Texas. And so I have lots and lots and lots of sponsorship experience. I helped the Urban League go from $150,000 in sponsorship to $250,000 in 1 year, as well as getting way more sponsorship, not just for their dinner, but also for their career conference as well. So I know what I'm talking about, but I also really want to stress that everybody here has like hundreds of years experience, all of us collectively in nonprofits and asking for sponsorship. So I'm really going to be asking you as well, what's working for you now and what's not, and we can all learn from you. And I hope that Stephen, you can tell me what comes up in the chat too as we go along. Today, I'm going to be pausing and asking people what's working and what's not, so we can all learn from you. And I really want to learn from you today. So just questions right now. Has anybody here polled or surveyed your former sponsors? Just drop a Y or N in a chat. You ever ever ask them what other nonprofits are giving to them? Ever ask their sponsors to brainstorm a brand new sponsorship experience for your event? These are more advanced questions, but feel free to type a Y or N in the chat. And then Stephen, you can just tell me like, what's the mix? Like a lot of Ys, a lot of Ns?
Looks like a majority N's, but peppered in with a couple Y's, but lots of N's for that one.
Okay, excellent. All right, good. So everybody, this is going to be new information for you, and I'm excited. I'm going to teach you how to make your sponsors want to come back year after year. It's important that you start thinking about, how do I maximize my very limited brain power right now as the pandemic rolls on? And even after it goes, we still have all this trauma to deal with. So don't expect that you're something to be all better, even if COVID goes away tomorrow, So here's what you're going to learn today. I want you to see the little GIF with the little person touching their face with the hand. So how to get your foot in the door, how to use your website. This is more important than ever to make your nonprofit attractive to sponsors, what your sponsors are really hungry for, phrases your sponsors love to hear. And SZA is like, yes. When to pitch sponsors, when they make budget decisions, what to bring to your sponsorship meeting, how to find and show your demographics, and the 7 key elements of a good sponsorship proposal. Now, that all said, if you have a really good, deep relationship with your sponsor, you can send them a 1-line email and be like, hey, do you want to sponsor again? And that can be it. So all of this can just be like icing on the cake for people that you don't know. I just wanted to share that with you. Like, when Steven and I do sponsorship, I just send him a one-line email. I'm just like, hey, you want to do this? And he's like, sure, okay. So like now we've gotten a little bit more complicated as Bloomerang has grown and it's gotten bigger. But I want you to know that if you're talking with the right person, it can be very, very, very simple. So if all this seems overwhelming, do not worry. Sometimes it can just be like, done. So yes or no, that's all you're looking for is a yes or no. How do you get your foot in the door? So you can ask HR if you could make a lunchtime presentation or a performance if you're performing arts nonprofit to employees over Zoom. I used to say in person, now I say over Zoom. You can go to previous sponsors and ask them, who else should we talk with? Do you have a friend that we should be talking with? A lot of us just never ever think of this. And if it's safe, you know, I know some of us are starting to lift the mask mandates now. Go to conferences and trade shows in your industry. And also a lot of the conferences and trade shows in Portland at least have moved online. So that's you sitting at home, you know. The IEG sponsorship report is an excellent report. I will tell you, it's $1,000. So these are some screenshots I got from the 2020 Outlook, and they do like all kinds of sponsorship. They do sponsorship on like really big sporting events. And so they, you know, when the pandemic first happened in 2020, we're a little concerned about how is this going to look, you know? And so they really saw that a lot of places that had really big sponsors, like millions and millions of dollars, right? People were like, let's just renegotiate this. But a lot of times what sponsors wanted was just their logo on Logo Soup, right? And now we're like, well, what if that's not working anymore because we have to do events differently, even if we're coming out of COVID? So what the head of IEG said in his Forbes interview was, we are now seeing a reinvention of what sponsorship means. And to put it in a tiny nutshell for you, he said, we're seeing it go way beyond what we used to. And actually it was a needed reinvention of sponsorship. So now we're really asking, you know, sponsors to help us create experiences for people that people will remember and associate with their brand. So if you take nothing else from this presentation today, know that Logo Soup is well and good if you can get away with it. But if you really want to keep your sponsors coming back, you want to give them more than that. And when I say Logo Soup, I just mean like, you know, how on the wall or on your website, you'll just put a big like wall of logos up. That's what Logo Soup is. Or have you ever seen one of those t-shirts with all the logos of the sponsors on it? That's also Logo Soup. Nobody knows, nobody cares what's actually on that shirt. It's just too much stuff happening. So how do you make your website attractive to sponsors? I like to look at the really, really big nonprofits like Humane Society. So this is from their website and their sponsor packet. They have a section on their events page just for sponsors. So I clicked that, and then they went through and they said, why should you sponsor? And they gave 3 reasons why. If you can see here, it says, showcase your services or products face-to-face with approximately 1,000 participants, reach tens of thousands through our marketing, and they explain what that means, and support an event that's important to your customers. So if you're like, wow, Mazarine, yeah, that seems great. We don't have all that. We don't want to be in person yet. I totally get it. Talk about your reach online. Talk about your social media. Talk about your email list. Talk about how many uniques come to your website each month. There's ways to do this during COVID, and who knows how long this is going to keep going, right? As much as we'd all like it to be over, it's not. And we're not going back to normal. Normal wasn't working. So you can tell them who's coming to your event, and we'll talk more about demographics later on today. I hope we can get through all of our slides because there's a lot of information here, but I'll do my best. And also, here's another example. This is the March of Dimes, and they actually have a whole series of pages profiling how companies have sponsored them. So you don't have to be this fancy, but you can certainly have examples on your single sponsorship page if you want to. So they had Kmart, they had Sanofi, they had United Airlines, and they said, here's what they did to, you know, sponsor our March for Babies. And they said, look, you can be part of this. And so this is also showing your sponsors, like, you're gonna be part of an exclusive group of really high profile brands if you come on and sponsor us. So for us smaller nonprofits, how would we translate this? Well, if you've had a bank sponsor you before, could other banks also sponsor you? If you've had a car company sponsor you before, could other car companies sponsor? You want to be able to find the decision maker in your town. That's really important. You're not going to get these humongous sponsors. I don't want to like mislead you. If you're not this big, it's unlikely they're going to be interested in you. That said, if you look back over the last several years of volunteers from different corporations, if you look at the last several years of who's already sponsored you, should be able to discover who's most likely to sponsor and who should we talk to. If you haven't been already reaching out to them, now's a great time to do it. Would anybody like to share right now how your sponsorship asks have been going, and like what have you been noticing in the last couple of years? Have people sponsored more? Have they sponsored less? Is it harder to reach out to people? Is it easier? What have you noticed? I'm curious.
I can see people type in Mazarine. I
Yeah.
think it's gonna, here we go. Same or less than previous years. It's been industry dependent, who we reach out to. That makes sense. Some people are saying they lost a few sponsors. Companies they partnered with became acquired, and then we became too small for them. That's an interesting one.
Interesting.
Relying on board members to solicit the company that they work for. That seems to make sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of good stuff in here, Mazarine.
Oh, good. Well, everybody, please look at the chat. Don't just type to panelists, type to everybody so we can all learn from you. It's, as I said, wow, there's 700 people here. There's hundreds of years of experience in this room, and I want everyone to learn from you. So here's just a few more ideas. A lot of organizations now are trying to find outdoor volunteer opportunities. This one is from the Partnerships of Parks in New York City. They're having corporate volunteers paint fences. So HR knows that if they have people in the organization do volunteering, it tends to make them want to stay with the company longer. So what you're doing when you ask for sponsorship and you give them a volunteer opportunity attached to it is that you're helping their employee retention rate. So basically, only you can save the corporations. So how about that? So when you're asking people to sponsor, you're actually doing them a favor, especially if you're incorporating volunteer opportunities into that. And I have a whole list of corporations that pay you $15 an hour and above per volunteer to be at your event doing something. So for example, when I was working at Athens Women's Services, we had Starbucks volunteers come to our gala, and we had them just like helping us with our raffles, passing out drinks. And we made $5,000 from having corporate volunteers at our event, which was great. It was great for us, you know. So now Starbucks is doing some union busting, which is really not cool. So you may not want to do that with Starbucks per se, but there's plenty of other organizations that, you know, you might want to look at. And that's part of my fundraising with volunteers course in my shop. So to show that you're ready for them, you could do an affinity program, cause marketing, corporate volunteer opportunities like we just said, sponsorship, obviously, advertising, ad revenue share, and additional opportunities. So when I was working at the Urban League, I got sponsorship in the form of just media. So I would talk to Comcast, and then we got like a whole bunch of media, and we were able to promote our career conference on their stations. So that wasn't money, but it was money in a way, you know? Personally, I think having Kroger and Amazon Smile on your site doesn't send the right message, and I'll tell you why. Because both Kroger and Amazon Smile have engaged in union busting. Their corporate profiles are in the toilet. Most of us really don't even make that much from these, and honestly, these corporations should be paying way more in taxes than they do, and they're trying to use these things as, you know, ways to like shunt more money to them and give you a tiny little piece of that. So if you're making a lot of money with this, great, but personally, I haven't heard of any nonprofit ever really making money with that, and I would not. I would not put their names of these toxic brands on your website. I don't think you should. I think more people are realizing they need to put their money somewhere else. So what are your sponsors really hungry for? Here's a person who's all like, oh, I'm so tired. I could really go for a giant sandwich. And if it's lunchtime where you are, hey, hope you ate already. It's about to be lunchtime. Hope you can have something really tasty for you. So this is from the IEG sponsorship report from 2018. This is the most recent free one you can get. So I put it out here because, yeah, I didn't want to spend $1,000. Hope you understand. So what sponsors really did want in their survey from 2018 was that called category exclusivity. That was the thing most of them wanted. What does that mean? What is category exclusivity? Category exclusivity is when you only have one kind of company per company. So for example, per category, right? So what that means is only one tech company, only one car company, only one bank, only one blah, blah, blah. You get the point, right? Only one catering company that's going to donate all these delicious snacks to your outdoor walk run, right? So that's what people said they wanted the most. And that, in my experience, hasn't really changed since I first started doing these presentations back in 2010. This has always stayed consistent. So if I had to predict what people wanted now, I would say this is still going to be the number one thing. So if somebody says, I want to be your only car company at this event, you can say, well, if you want category exclusivity, it really needs to be a $50,000 sponsorship, because otherwise we have these 5 other car companies that are willing to do this. So that's something to think about. I would love to pause for a second and ask folks, what have you seen really matters to your sponsors? Have you ever asked them what really matters to you?
I can see some typing happening, Mazarine. Knowing the impact of their sponsorship, volunteer opportunities. A lot of people are saying volunteer opportunities. Number of impressions, community engagement. A lot of volunteer opportunities for their employees. That's a cool one.
Yeah, well, everybody, please pay attention to all the smart people in the chat. If you don't already have volunteer opportunities, thank you so much, Stephen, for doing that. Then I would definitely start thinking about that. So this is for like really big, companies, like sports companies and stuff. Also, funny thing happened in 2020 when we didn't have sporting events for a while. Twitch, the twitch.tv, which is owned by Amazon, actually got so many more people watching it. And on top of that, they actually, I talked with people who work there, and they said people watch more video gaming than all sports combined. So if your organization isn't yet on Twitch or a streaming platform like that, Twitch is just basically like YouTube, but purple. You can stream on either platform or both at the same time if you want to. I'm going to be streaming more on those platforms in the next few months. And I started streaming on Twitch in 2020, just making art. But you can do all sorts of things on these platforms to gain an audience and gain more people becoming aware of your cause. Like you can do a nature walk. You can just stream whatever you're doing, honestly, and people will watch it. So that's something that's brand new that a lot of, people are now looking at as this could be really interesting. You have to be playing video games. You can be doing literally anything, making dinner, having a conversation, whatever. So this is also what the IEG report said. What do sponsors want from you? They want assistance measuring ROI as the number one thing. And that really shouldn't be your responsibility, but they kind of want to make it your responsibility, and I can't blame them. Post-event report, if you're not yet doing a sponsorship report for your sponsors, you really, really should be. So those two are the top 2 things that they said they wanted in 2018. I can't see those changing, honestly. So when you have never made a sponsorship report, we'll talk about what's in that and we'll keep going. Gosh, I hope I have enough time here. I'm not even looking at the time. So what do they really want? They want awareness and visibility of their brand. And then they want to increase brand loyalty and change their image. Those are the 3 things they mainly want. So if you can show them that you have a wide reach and you can give them visibility and also make them look good, that's what they want. This is their marketing dollar spend generally. So that's just a FYI. They're making their budgets, they're thinking about it, they're deciding based on how much visibility you can give them. So if you want to, have a conversation about how you can increase your email list or increase your social media following, that's a whole other webinar, or you can chat with me, either way. So this is what they're really evaluating when they are thinking about sponsoring you. They're thinking, how can we change people's attitudes toward our brand? Can we get more positive social media activity? Could more awareness around what we do, and then awareness of the sponsorship. So those are like the 4 things. They really want to change people's perceptions about who they are. And usually working with a nonprofit is a wonderful way to do that, because we have this like halo effect, you know. So that's something that you can hopefully help them measure with a survey afterwards, saying like, hey, do you feel more positively about X brand? You can just send that out and let the sponsor see the results of that. That's the number 1 thing you could do if you want to ask people just one question at the end of your event, online or offline. This is not the most recent numbers. This may change, and I would tell you, ask your current sponsors, when do you make decisions? For when I looked at this information, it was 4th quarter. But you don't know. People might be moving around their decision making based on what the market is doing, based on, you know, how the world is so much more unpredictable than it was. So this is a way for you to decide, how do I space out my work based on when should I be asking and when should I be like delivering sponsorship? So obviously 4th quarter asking, other 3 quarters delivering. Have you ever asked sponsors for testimonials? If not, here's some sample ones that you can steal and change for you, and then give them to your past sponsors and saying, hey, would you change anything about this before we put this on our website? That's one way you can do that. So I got these from South by Southwest sponsorship report or sponsorship packet. They've been instrumental in the development of our brand since day 1. Being a major music sponsor offered us unparalleled exposure to a highly targeted group of customers. You could just steal that last sentence. So they want unparalleled exposure to a highly targeted group of customers. And that's why if you have a lot of local donors, then having local companies say we want exposure to these folks makes a lot of sense for them. A platform to directly interact with our often hard to reach target, exposing them to our products. Since we've all been sitting at home for 2 years, a lot of us anyway, it's been harder for brands to reach us, and people have really been scrambling and struggling. And if you didn't already have a big marketing funnel built up, it's not the best time to build one. And this is where you can save the corporations again, right? Exposing them to the products. If you have an outdoor event, right? Could they have a car there? Could they have food there that people could eat? You know, what sets you apart for a relatively modest investment, cheap for the price, and next year we'll be back to support you again. So those are some of the things that you can put in your testimonial. So here's some phrases you can ask your current sponsors or the ones from last year. I bet you haven't asked these yet. These are really fun. Are the sponsorships benefits providing appropriate for your needs? How will you be measuring the results of this investment? If you don't like that one as much, but we've come up with some creative ideas for leverage and we want to consider. Would you like to hear more about that? And they'd be like, yeah, sure, take some work off my plate, absolutely. Or we've done some research on your brand. Like, ooh, okay. So now I'm interested because you're not just coming to me like a blanket, like sponsorship letter for everyone. And so I was working with an organization in Calgary a couple weeks ago, and she's like, well, we're just gonna send out like a blanket letter to everyone. I'm like, please don't do that. Please, please, please don't do that. Don't do that. This is what you should do instead. You know, talk to people on the phone if you can, text them, send them a 1-line email and say, hey, could we chat about sponsorship for a second? And then if they say yes, say set up a call, and then, you know, show them your packet and say, is this appropriate for what you're looking for? I've done some research on your brand, and I think this could do this, this, and this, you know? So these are some ideas. Here's a tennis nonprofit, and they have a bunch of things about why people should sponsor them, why your company would benefit. That's the big question that's in sponsors' minds when they are talking with you. So all of these things, more phrases they love to hear. What makes our event unique is, and so for me, for my career conference event, it's going to be about talking about collective power. not just about resumes and cover letters, but we will also have those as bonuses. It's going to be about, you know, maybe nonprofits can become co-ops or unionize or pay everybody $70,000 a year and above. And we'll have people talking about all those things, all these things that they're doing. So that's just an example of how my event is different. We'll also talk about anti-racism and equity and how not to just be like, oh, we just did a statement, we're all set, you know, performative DEI. That's how my event's going to be different. How is your event going to be different? And so what experiences have you had with other nonprofits that worked? Anything you would do differently? How will you be measuring results against your objectives? Have you developed targets off of benchmarks? And what perceptions and behaviors are you trying to change with the sponsorship? And this goes back to having people have awareness and then changing the perception about the brand. These are the two things that your sponsors really, really want. So I have a mailing list of 10,000 people. I don't know how many you all have, but you should be able to trip that off your tongue. How many is on our email list? Why should you care? How many years have been building up this brand? You know, even if it wasn't you personally, the nonprofit has built a reputation in the community that the brand can surf on. So more phrases your sponsors love to hear. You can ask specific questions about their key messaging, operational issues. Are they having a hard time keeping people? Visibility, reputation, product positioning, sales goals, new product rollout, workforce, consumer market penetration, all of that stuff. A couple of years ago, I was talking with somebody who's all like, hey, I can probably get you $10,000 from Shell. And I was like, do I want that? Do I want that? Does that really fit with who I am? And so I want you to go back and look at your donor, you know, kind of values and say, this is who we are. Don't just take money because it's easy money, because it could taint you by association. I ended up not taking that money. Sometimes I kind of kick myself for not doing that, but other times I'm like, well, there's plenty of other places to get $10,000. I didn't have to do it from an oil company. So you want to make sure that you have values that you're consistently sticking to when you ask for sponsorship too. So looking at these things also helps you decide, do we want them? Not just do they want us? You can bring your brainstorming hat to the meeting. Ask them if they could have anything with the sponsorship, what would it be? Stories. Give stories about how other people have done sponsorship with you. So for example, I've had universities sponsor my events before, and I allowed them to talk about their programs, their online masters in nonprofit management, and they got people to sign up for that based on sponsoring my event. Magnifying glass. Give evidence that you understand their brand, their attitudes, and their attributes. Target markets, psychographic more than demographic, and objectives. So what do I mean by that? Demographics are this. This is some graffiti I did last year, just FYI, just for fun, for Valentine's Day, why not? So you could have people ask questions, make them answer a survey when they buy tickets, or you could ask your sponsor to pay for a third-party analytics firm or digital analytics company. So simple survey questions, where they live. I would like to live behind this waterfall. That's where I'd like to live. Income level, type of events they attend, car they drive, type of job they have, number of children, leisure activities they enjoy. These are different things you can figure out and then that your sponsors will care about. This is what South by Southwest said about how many people are there. And then the National Urban League Conference is here on the left. You can see this infographic, what their age groups are, what their income is, what their education is, what their gender is, all that stuff. This is what AFP does. This is from their sponsor brochure from 2012. And they're trying to get people who are software vendors to come in and sponsor. So you can see here, they're showing that people there have purchase power on these things. They show what kinds of organizations are there. They show what job titles they have. So that's something to think about. So think about what specific kinds of people they target, what you want them to know, believe, feel, or understand, what they want these people to do. And if they have an experience they'd like to create for a certain kind of person, let's say they'd like to talk to somebody who makes over 100,000 a year and have them sit in their new Lexus from their car dealership, right? So if that's true, then you go to Lexus dealer and say, we're going to have your target audience at our event give us $50,000, they might consider it. Car sales have really gone up during the pandemic, and this is not a bad time at all to ask car dealerships to sponsor you. So demographics to help sponsors measure impact. Must know and must do. That's what this is. Ideas to help them measure impact. You could funnel them into a website that the sponsor runs, click-throughs to purchase from a sponsor microsite or social media activities. Things like that. Call hotlines or SMS from people wanting to learn more about the sponsor's products. That's another way to help them measure their impact. Click-throughs that are trackable that could lead to a purchase from a sponsor's microsite, like downloading software, setting up a demo, creating an appointment, filling out a sponsored survey, all of that. And here we see on the right some really pretty flowers for an event that I went to outside in 2020. And I actually helped this executive director get sponsors for this event, which was her first event. So this is what it looked like. And it was in Idaho, so that's why nobody's wearing masks, because they don't like to do that there. That's another story. But luckily, as far as I know, nobody got COVID there, which was great. So they had live music, they had incredible meals, and they had people sitting outside of this land trust doing this event, and she got so many sponsors. And here's something that we really wanted to stress, that we wanted this to be good for local businesses as well. So what we did is we made a little box that was kind of like a breakfast in bed sort of tray made of wood. And then we put different things in there from different local businesses, like a local winery, local tea monger, local pottery studio, local dried flowers. What else do we have in there? It was all listed on a piece of paper that also came with it saying, hey, please support these local businesses. So that's another way, if you're going to be doing an event this year, that you can start thinking about, how can we make this good, not just for really humongous corporations, but local businesses, making it feel like we can expose people to their products in a safe way. That's some creativity that we did together in 2020 that I really wanted to share with you. It really, really works. They had a tremendously successful event. The tickets were I don't know, $400, and they totally made bank with this event, and they'd never done it before. And they just did it on a trail in their land trust. And so they did it again last year, probably gonna be doing it again this year. It's at the end of August. It wasn't really that cold of a night, but it was nice to have those little heat things there. And they, we really got creative with the food. And so people are seeking and craving these safe experiences of joy and community. And as an event coordinator, director, etc., you can give this to them. And what a special thing for you to do right now, for all of us, to give people a chance to feel connected again. So I salute you for doing the work that you're doing. And I know how hard it is. This was a hard thing to do. It's still a hard thing to do, but it's worth doing. And I love helping people be really creative and have a really good time with their events. So this is our big triumph. So I'm really, really glad we did this. And they had local musicians, they paid them, and they paid everyone. So elements of a good sponsorship proposal, if you're going to be formal with it, tell people what it is, and no more than 2 or 3 paragraphs. All about the marketing objectives, measures of success, value to the sponsor, unique marketing initiatives, terms and conditions, and call to action. So build in benefits that get them closer to a yes. Deadline incentives, introduce sponsors to each other. This is really a trend that I'm going to think we're going to see more and more and more of. Incorporating the brand into the fabric of the experience, not just saying logo soup. So for gala sponsors, if you're going to be doing a gala this year, maybe you're trying to plan that right now, complimentary champagne, valet parking, award named after a sponsor, donate a useful high-end product to the raffle. If raffles are legal where you are. In Massachusetts, this may not apply, but in Oregon, it does. Isn't that funny? Isn't that sad? Anyway, in Massachusetts, raffles are illegal gambling, just FYI. Just, you're not going to be able to do that there. Massachusetts has so many laws, so many rules. Oh, so you can think about customized volunteer opportunities. A lot of people here are already sharing volunteer opportunities, what they really want. So New York Cares has some information about that, or year-long sponsorship. So the San Francisco Food Bank does a year-long sponsorship. I have moved to that model myself this year with my events. Doing a year-long sponsorship really works great. You don't have to keep asking people over and over again. You can just say, yeah, just sponsor once for the whole year. That'd be great. So you want more resources. I have a whole sponsorship course for you. If you go to mazarinetrace.com and click on my shop, you can find it. Your ultimate guide to a bigger sponsorship. There's so much more I could tell you. There's so many like templates, worksheets, checklists, strategies that we couldn't cover today. And I'd be happy to share them all with you. Go check that out. And then here's some places to find sponsors. If you're like just coming up empty with all the suggestions we had today and you want more suggestions of where to find people, check out bizjournals.com for US and Canada. Check out the Third Sector Suppliers Guide in the UK. For Australia, ABI Informed Database. And in the US, it's called Candid now, but it was called the Foundation Center Directory or Grant Space. At your local central library, they will give you the Platinum Edition for free. And also, I'd love it if you came to my events. Bloomerang is sponsoring. It would be so fun to see you there. The April event is just spring break. It's free or donation only. Love to see you there. Party Against the Patriarchy is coming again in July. We're going to talk more about fundraising there. And in March, we're going to talk about how you can have personal and organizational power in your organization so that you can work less and have more fun. And that's what I want for all of us here. So that's it. Let's take some questions. I know we have so many questions. So thank you for all that you do for your cause. I'd love your honest feedback on this presentation. I'm always trying to improve. Book a call, let's chat. Join us at the career conference or check out my shop.
Yeah, that was awesome, Mazarine. We got a lot of time for questions, probably maybe 10 or 11 minutes actually. So if you haven't asked a question, yeah, this is good. But
we have so many questions.
Yeah, probably won't get to all of them.
Yeah, so but I want to try.
I'll run through them quick, but first I just want to say thank you, Mazarine, and give you a chance to drink some water because you were just peppering us with a lot of good stuff for over 40 minutes. First question, a lot of people were asking variations of this question, so I'll kind of call it out. You know, our crew, a lot of small nonprofits, as you know, Mazarine, I know those are your people as well. When exposure is maybe not something that a small nonprofit can offer in return to a potential sponsor, what are some other things, or maybe what are some other, you know, value-based or ROI things that they could offer instead of that? I'm wondering if, you know, speaking me who works at a for-profit, when we sponsor things, we like to tell people that we sponsored it, right? We tell our people who are already following us, because then, you know, it shows that we're a philanthropic entity or whatever. Is that something that makes sense to you? And I mean, it seems like it doesn't always have to be the audience of the nonprofit that's being sponsored. It could be the current audience of the sponsor itself. Does that kind of make sense? Or what else do you think on that topic?
Well, you know, you and I have a relationship and you've sponsored me many times, and I really, really appreciate that. And this is just going to be a quick little, you know, sponsor chat, you know, and I'll say like, hey, we know each other, like, let's do this, you know? And so I want to remind people that like relationships are everything. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not necessarily just about the pure numbers that we talk about here. Maybe it would be like that for a total stranger, but for people that really have gotten to know each other and like each other over the years, go back to them, you know, look at who sponsored you 4 years ago, talk to who's there now, like, build new relationships. I know it's harder during the time of COVID, but you know, if you reach out, the worst thing they're going to say is, no, I don't want to meet with you, you know, or maybe they'll just ignore you, and that's okay, and give them grace again. So relationships are what fundraising is. It's not just like marketing dollars.
That reminded me. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, go on. Yeah,
that makes sense. That reminded me of a comment that came up when you were talking about this in the presentation. Someone recommended the employers of board members. In other words, the companies that board members. Does that make sense as a first place for maybe a small nonprofit to start?
Yes.
If there isn't, Yeah.
And again, it's about relationships. It just comes back to that. Yes. Start there. Absolutely start there, but don't end there.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just about marketing dollars. It's about that they get to say that they did this. You're absolutely right. If you stand for something that they want to stand for too, let them know, and like give them something to put on their website about it, or give them like a brochure they could stick up on their wall if people come in. Like, we are proud supporters of this nonprofit because we believe that, you know, no one should die from domestic violence, or we believe that every animal should have a home, or whatever your organization is.
That makes sense. So what about the complete opposite side of that coin when it comes to reaching out and breaking through with maybe a bigger company that you've never contacted but is on your list, you think it aligns with the mission, all that good stuff? How do you break through? One of your slides mentioned the HR department. Is that where you should start? Is it marketing? Like, do you just go there and sit in the lobby until somebody has a meeting with you? What do you do?
I have some secrets for you. If you stuck around, very smart person. So here's the secrets that I'm going to share with you now. The sponsorship department at really big companies is inundated. So if you're looking at CSR, don't bother. Go to the marketing department instead and say, hey, we have this thing. That is direct from Bruce Birch, who wrote Win-Win for the Greater Good. He's known as the father of pause marketing. He has a video up with a whole interview on my YouTube channel. So go check that out. If you look up Mazarine Trays on YouTube, you can find him. And if you don't, let me know. I may have taken it down, but I think it's still there. He presented for me several years ago. I have a whole webinar with him explaining exactly how to do this. I also have the PDF of his book, Win-Win for the Greater Good. If you want that, he's allowed me to like distribute that. So he is the sponsorship guru, honestly, but he did stuff for the Olympics. Like, he's really Mr. Big sponsorship guy. I'm like the smaller person. For smaller nonprofits, I would say. So that's just a FYI on that. But yeah, go to HR if you can't get in touch with marketing and say, look, are people still looking for volunteer opportunities? Are they still interested in that? Do you still want to do that? We have some coming up that you might like. And they'd be like, yes or no. And then the next person, you know, or we'd love to just do like a little virtual concert for your organization on Zoom. That's something they can offer their employees, that would be a benefit and a value add to them. So no matter what, marketing and HR can be your allies in this.
I love it. That was chock full, and we'll have to link to that. Maybe you could send that the folks to your YouTube channel, and we reach back out after the event, after the webinar.
Yes, I will happily give you the link to his interview. It's gold.
Here's a really good one from Jasmine. So it's been almost 2 years since the pandemic began, and maybe a lot of folks haven't done in-person events, but maybe they're gearing up to come back to them, you know, in the summer or whenever it makes sense to do that. How do you go back to, you mentioned this a lot, going back to previous sponsors? What if it's kind of been a while? Does it maybe require a different tact or a different type of conversation? Like, hey, you know, we were not doing events during the pandemic, but now we're back. Like, how would you kind of approach that when there's maybe been that little bit of a lull since the last event?
Well, remember what I did for you last year? You remember, Stephen? I sent you something in the mail.
Does it involve loose leaf tea?
It does. It involves art and tea, and a joyful thank you for everything you've always done for me and how grateful I am. And so I hope you all can feel the love here, because I really mean it. It's been such a joy, like getting to write for Bloomerang and present. And so yeah, like I don't have this relationship with anyone else, you know, and so I really wanted to share that. Like, Stephen and I both love tea, so I got him some tea. Yeah, and just they've probably had a really hard time too. So just being super honest and kind and sending a little package of things you think they would like, and, you know, treat them like a friend, you know, and say, hey, I haven't heard from you, I miss you, because that is accurate, you know. So I would try that.
I love leading with a thank you. What are your other tips on just like general sponsorship recognition? It seems like a lot of sponsors go maybe underthanked, like donors do sometimes. What's your approach to saying thank you?
Well, I love to send packages. I love to send handwritten notes. I love to send sponsorship reports. I didn't do that last year, but I'm going to do it this year. I love to show them the impact that they had and show them testimonials from folks that came. So for me, people have gotten jobs from my events. People have gotten raises from my events. People have gotten like a better life from my events. And they're people like us, people who work at nonprofits, people who are fundraisers, people who, we identify with because, Stephen, that's your target audience. And for me, that's who I've been. That's who I am, so people like us. So I think showing them how much people had fun and then thanking sponsors and asking them, how would you like to be thanked? Don't just, assume that it's just like any other relationship. The more you assume, probably the more wrong you are. So the more you can ask questions, and I give you a lot of questions to ask, and even just checking in afterwards and saying, how was that for you? Could we do anything better next time? I think, that's even just as good or even better than a thank you, because if you fucked up, you should know now. And if you didn't, then let's talk about, great. More of that then, just like a friend, like, hey, we hung out. You want to hang out again? Cool. Okay. And we'll do more of what we did. Yeah, that sounds fun. Okay.
Never hurts to say thank you, right? You can't go wrong in a lot of ways.
No,
Here's a really interesting one for an organization that is maybe national or more specifically doesn't have a local footprint. What should they do? It's not the small businesses in the same town that they're in. Does that really precipitate a stronger alignment with the mission? Is that the answer there? What would you say to some of those nationwide organizations or ones where they're not necessarily in a geographic footprint?
I love this question. This is also the thing that I do. I have national sponsorships because I'm a national company. So what I do is I emphasize the kind of person that's going to be there is the exact target audience that this national company wants to see. So it really comes back down to who is there. So let's say, for example, you're a medical research nonprofit. Let's say you're researching scleroderma or something, or cancer, right? So people that come to your event might be a bunch of researchers or doctors. Well, who wants to be in touch with them? Like, let's talk about maybe medical supply companies or pharmaceutical companies, or, sad trombone sound, right? Like people that like access to those kinds of people. That's the place to start.
What if you alluded to this in your last answer? What if maybe a sponsor isn't happy for some reason? Maybe I don't know, they didn't get what they wanted, or just something went wrong. Maybe they felt underthanked or something. How do you kind of recover from that, assuming that it had been a good fit before and you would want to continue?
Yeah, that hasn't happened to me. But I will say that they wouldn't complain if they didn't care. So you can treat them like a complainer donor, and you can say, oh, they care. That's why they told me, instead of just fucking off and never seeing me again. So if that's the case, then just be like, hey, I'm so sorry that we didn't meet your expectations. We want to make this right. What would help make this right for you? And then you can push that problem back on them so they can start thinking about how you can start deliberately building trust with them again. And maybe it was that last year you expected to have a in-person event and you didn't refund their sponsorship. And maybe that was what went wrong. Or maybe they didn't get the return they were looking for, and that's kind of out of your control. You can say, what exciting new ideas could we try for next year? I mean, let's keep the conversation going. Like, I want to make this work for you. And so it's never the end of a conversation when someone complains. It's the beginning of a conversation.
Love that. Yeah, I love that advice. Absolutely. I also love the conversation in the chat. Keep it going, folks. I love that you're interacting with each other. There's a topic that's come up here in the chat just recently, in person to virtual. And you've been part of this shift, obviously, Mazarine, over the last 2 or 3 years. Any different considerations when the event is virtual, especially if it has been in person in the past?
That's a really good question. And I'm glad people are talking about that in the chat. We didn't cover that too much in this presentation. because that's not what this is about. But I actually, I have a whole e-course just on like how to do webinars and promote them, just FYI. But it's difficult. And this is something that the head of the IAG sponsorship report talked about in Forbes. He said, we are making new agreements with different corporate sponsors that can no longer be in person. And he said, we're really having to retool everything we gave them. So I want you to understand that good art requires constraints, and the constraints can make you extremely creative. So now that you have these constraints, it's time for you to think like an artist. It's time for you to be creative. It's time for you to reach out and say, how can we creatively make something that really works for you in a virtual way? Maybe it's that you allow them to sponsor one of your emails to folks. Maybe it's that you send them to a sponsored website. Maybe it's that you allow them to survey the folks that came. Maybe it's that you give them something like a goodie bag that gets sent out to everybody who attended, and it has some sponsor swag in it. We were talking about swag before we turned on the cameras. So if they have sponsor swag they want to send, let them send it, you know, or a coupon for something like % off their service, whatever.
I love it. Yeah, Jeff just said, don't assume you know what a sponsor wants, ask them, which is a big takeaway I got from this presentation from you, Mazarine. I love the sponsor page of the website. I haven't seen too many of those in the wild. I hope some people make those. Dang, this is awesome. We're almost out of time, and I know there's a lot of questions in here that we didn't get to. I promised I wasn't playing favorites, folks. I love you all, but any last thoughts, Mazarine, before we call it a day here? How can people get in touch with you, maybe get a question in front of you that didn't get answered here live?
Yeah, absolutely. Go to bit.ly/mtfree30. Use that, capitalization that's right here on your screen, capital MT and F. Check out the career conference. I'd love to see you there. Check out the party at the end of the patriarchy. I'd love to see you there in July. But also check out my shop. Like, there's so many questions that are answered in my sponsorship course that I think could really help you. So go to mazarinetrays.com and go to my shop to see that. So, but yeah, happy to chat with whoever. Send me your questions. I also have a contact form on my website. You can just send a question through that.
Right on. And we will be sending the slides and the recording. So if you joined late, don't worry. You can watch any portion that you missed, and the slides will have all those good links in them that Mazarine shared. And check out that career conference. That's the one that's coming up first, right, Mazarine?
Yes, in March, end of March.
That's
Friday
a really good
Saturday.
one.
Yeah.
We have really enjoyed being a part of that at Bloomerang, and there's always a lot of really good advice shared there because your careers matter, and
it's Career Dash Conference. I'm so sorry. I screwed up what this says on here. Pardon me, everybody. Career Dash Conference. I apologize.
let me type that out, and then I'll drop
in
it
the chat. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's working. Here we go. Boom. Yeah, check that out. It's a good event. Mazarine, this was awesome. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you so much for having me, Stephen. I really, really appreciate it. I hope everybody can come, and this was wonderful.
Yeah, this was fun having you, and I really appreciated a full room today and so much interaction in the chat. I love that you all were talking to each other and sharing email addresses. That makes me so happy. Thanks for doing that.
Thank you.
Sorry, the trash truck just came by my house, but now it's gone.
I can't hear it.
Okay, good. It didn't come through. Well, we got some really awesome webinars coming up. We're going to be talking about building donor rapport next week. Let me bring up my slides here because I want to give people the link. Every Thursday, like I said, we do a webinar over here at Bloomerang. Same time, same place. Our buddy Sarah Lang is going to join us. I've actually seen this presentation on another webinar series, and I thought, dang, she's got to come on and give this to the Bloomerang crew. Actually 2 p.m. Eastern. So exactly 1 week from right now, if you're listening live. And if you're watching the recording, you can register for that. And if you are here, if you're listening to me right now, you will get an email from me later on today with the slides and the recording from today's presentation. So hopefully we will see you next week. Then there's lots of other webinars. Like I said, every single Thursday, you can find a topic that is probably a hot issue for you right now. So check that out. And hopefully we will see you again on another session. So we'll call it a day there. Have a good rest of your Thursday. Have a good rest of your week. Stay warm, stay healthy out there. We need all of you doing all that good work. And hopefully we will see you again soon. See ya.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.